friend. You're listening to The Sustainable Body Worker, the podcast for massage therapists who want to grow thriving, purpose-led businesses without the burnout. Here we talk about nervous system aligned business strategy, pricing that makes sense, client work that doesn't deplete you, and how to build a career that actually supports your life. I'm your host, Gretchen Pop, massage therapist, mentor, educator, and recovering overachiever. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Sustainable Body Worker podcast. In this episode, I'm going to say something that might be a little unpopular in our profession right now, but I'm going to say it anyway. The massage profession does not need more solo practitioners. It needs better employers. Because while, yes, there are absolutely practitioners who are meant to go out on their own, build something beautiful, and thrive in solo practice. It's a wonderful aspect of being a massage therapist. There are also a whole lot of incredibly talented massage therapists who never actually wanted to become a business owner in the first place. They just got kind of pushed into it because the places available to work felt so unsupported, so misaligned, or so unsustainable that going out on their own started to feel like the only sane option. And I think we need to talk about that. So that's what we're going to focus on for today's episode. And actually, the next couple of episodes will be talking on a similar theme. At the end of the day, working for a franchise that underpays you, working for a small business that may have started with good intentions but no real leadership skills, or white-knuckling your way through solo practice are not the only options. At least they shouldn't be the only options. And if you are someone who has the vision, the leadership capacity, and the desire to grow a team, then this episode really is for you. Open your ears, really take this one in, because I truly believe that this profession can change when more thoughtful people step up into that role with intention. And I was inspired to keep this conversation going after my recent episode with Annette Montgomery, where we got into some of the nuance around employment, support, and the reality that not every massage therapist is meant to be a solopreneur. That conversation really stayed with me because over the years, I've heard from so many practitioners that the reason they went solo was not because entrepreneurship has always been the dream. A lot of the time, it was because they were unhappy where they were underpaid, they were undersupported, or they were working in a culture that just didn't feel aligned for them. And eventually, going out on their own felt like the only way to protect themselves. And I get that. I've been there. But I don't think that the answer is that every massage therapist needs to become a business owner. I think the answer is that if more of us who do have leadership skills, who do have vision, and who do care deeply about culture and sustainability are willing to become employers and willing to do it well, then we create another path, a better path, in my opinion. This can be a path where a talented practitioner can love their work, they can be well supported, be compensated fairly, be a part of something meaningful, and not have to carry the burden of marketing, bookkeeping, admin, laundry, payroll, web design, client communication, and every other hat that comes along with owning a business. And let's just be honest here. The message online right now is very heavily skewed toward this idea that if you just go out on your own, you'll automatically make more money and have more freedom. I think that is wildly oversimplified. Now, before I go any further, I want to say really clearly that I am not anti-entrepreneurship. Solo practice can be beautiful. There is a kind of freedom in that is real. You get to choose your schedule. You get to choose the way that your room feels. You get to choose the products that you use, how you work with clients, how your policies are written, what music is playing, what your days look like, right? That can be incredible. And for some people, it really is the right fit. So I want to validate that. But I also think that solopreneurship gets marketed like a shiny object without enough honesty around the actual math, the actual workload, and the actual emotional burden of being the person responsible for all of it. Because yes, maybe let's do simple math. Maybe you're charging $100 an hour. Cool. But let's do some basic math around that. I use $100 because that's a nice round number we can work with. So let's say you set aside 30% for taxes, because I personally would always rather estimate liberally and get a refund than not set aside enough and end up owing later. So let's start with 30% for taxes. Then let's say, very loosely, another 30% goes toward overhead, rent, laundry, your website, booking software, linen, supplies, marketing, continuing ed, insurance, all of that. That leaves you with roughly $33 an hour. And that's before you calculate all of the unpaid time. That's before the texting, the rescheduling, the client communication, the laundry, the cleaning, the bookkeeping, the content creation, the website updates, the mental load, and all the time spent being your own receptionist, marketer, assistant, and manager. So when people say, I make $100 an hour, I always want to ask, do you really? Because if you actually did the math on all the hours you work, a lot of practitioners would realize they're making far less than they think they are, sometimes less than minimum wage. And again, that does not mean that solo practice is bad. It just means we need to be more honest. The other piece that often gets overstated is freedom. People love to say that if you work for yourself, at least you have freedom. And yes, technically, you do have the ability to choose your schedule, but in real life, a lot of practitioners do not experience that as freedom. They experience it as the ability to overbook themselves without anyone stopping them. They squeeze in one more client because it's another $100. They work too much the week before vacation and too much the week after vacation to make up for lost income. They take their business home with them every single day. And because this profession is full of people pleasers, caretakers, and deeply service oriented humans, we need to be honest about the fact that not everyone thrives in that environment. Some people would be healthier, happier, and more financially stable as an employee in the right workplace. And I think that that matters because right now, so many people feel like their only options are to either work for someone else and be miserable or go out on their own and be free. I just don't think that that's true. It's not as black and white as that. I think both paths can be really beautiful, and I think both paths can be incredibly hard. But I also think that there's a huge opportunity here for those of us who are called to leadership to create something different, to create places where people actually want to stay, and to create workplaces that don't chew people up, to create businesses that are not just profitable, but purposeful. And if hiring or team growth is something that has been on your heart lately, I do want to mention the Sustainable Success Blueprint here because it really is a beautiful place to start sorting out whether that path is actually aligned for you and what it would look like to build it in a way that fits your values. Because I don't believe in copying somebody else's version of success, and I definitely do not believe in hiring just because you feel pressured to scale. But if you are feeling called to lead and you want to do it intentionally, that class with the link in the show notes will help you think through your next step with a lot more clarity. Now, let's talk about what I think the profession gets wrong here. One of the biggest mistakes in our industry is assuming that if someone is a good therapist, they will automatically be a good employer. Those are not the same skill set at all. Being an incredible practitioner does not mean you know how to hire well. It does not mean you know how to onboard someone. It does not mean you know how to create a good workplace culture. It doesn't mean you understand payroll, systems, leadership, communication, receiving feedback, or what kind of role you're even creating. And I say that with compassion because I have lived it. I have hired many people. I have fired several people. I have made my own mistakes. I have learned the hard way what happens when you hire the wrong person. I've also learned what it takes to eventually find the right people. Toward the end of owning my own clinic, I really did have the most beautiful core team, and saying goodbye to that was bittersweet because it felt like I had finally landed in what I had worked so hard to create. But I also know how much trial and error it took to get there. One story that comes to mind here is about a practitioner I hired who was very sweet. She was brand new and had a lot of potential. And at my clinic, every practitioner I hired went through a pretty rigorous onboarding and training process. We trained our practitioners in neuromuscular cupping therapy, which is the work I'm known for. And they got 12 weeks of one on one training with me, got 12 bodies on the table, this one on one mentorship with me, working through each aspect of the neuromuscular cupping therapy training, and then additional training on our protocols and the way that we worked in the clinic. That's pretty extensive compared to the standard, right? And obviously, with this one practitioner, we did all of that just like everyone else. But over time, I did get feedback from clients that the work she was providing was just not quite where it needed to be. So we mentored her more, we gave more feedback, we tried to support her, and eventually it became clear that while she was a lovely human, she was not actually the right fit in terms of bodywork style and her ability to integrate the feedback that she was receiving. And ultimately, unfortunately, I did have to let her go. And that was really hard because this is another part of leadership people do not always think through. Sometimes someone can be a good person and still not be the right fit for your business. That does not make them bad. It does not make you bad, but it does mean that you need the discernment to know the difference. And here's the part of the story that really stuck with me. A couple of months later, I saw that she had gotten another massage job and she posted on a Facebook group basically asking, "Is this normal?" Because on her first day there, instead of being onboarded or shown how things worked or even shown where the sheets were, she was expected to jump right in with clients immediately. No orientation, no guidance, no support, no real explanation of where anything was, just go. And people in the group were basically like, yeah, that's kind of how it is. And I remember feeling so sad and so fired up by that because no, that should not just be how it is. That's exactly the kind of thing I want to see changed in our profession. We need to stop acting like throwing someone into the deep end is normal. We need to stop acting like a new hire should just magically know how your space works, how your business operates, where things are, what your expectations are, what your standards are, what your culture is, and how to succeed in your environment. It's going to be different everywhere, right? And expecting all of that is not fair to the practitioner and it's not good leadership. Honestly, it's not good business either. Because when people feel lost, unsupported, and confused from day one, they don't settle in well. They don't feel safe. They don't feel like they're part of something. They don't start to develop loyalty or trust, right? Because it's not safe for them. And then people wonder why they have constant turnover. Well, oftentimes that's part of the why. You know that feeling when you have a really great idea for an online course or program, something that could help so many people create passive income and finally free you from the hands on hamster wheel, but you have no idea how to actually build it? Or maybe you've already started building it, but you're stuck. You're second guessing yourself, you don't know if it'll actually work, and honestly, you're not sure you have the time or the money to figure it out. I hear you, and here's what I want you to know. The practitioners inside the Sustainable Bodyworker membership were in that exact same spot. They were stretched thin, managing all the business tasks alone, juggling family and clients and laundry and everything else. They had dreams of building something bigger, but they didn't believe it was possible for them either. And now, they're launching online courses that enroll students before they ever build a single module. They're taking vacations without a financial hit. They're working fewer client days and making more money. They're standing up as leaders in this field and inspiring other body workers to do the same. One of my members, Adrienne, launched her first course while navigating postpartum life with her first baby. She had 13 students sign up for her beta launch, way more than she ever expected. And now she has an online course that sells on autopilot while she's easing back into hands-on work on her terms. Another member, Jessica, was working herself into the ground trying to keep her business afloat while caring for aging parents and managing a chronic illness. She joined the membership, implemented the systems, and completely transformed her practice. She now has clients who see her as a professional, who value her work, respect her boundaries, and show up ready to invest. Here's the thing. These members didn't have more time or more money when they started. They had the same fears, the same doubts, the same packed schedules you probably have right now. But what changed wasn't their circumstances. It was the support they received. Inside the Sustainable Bodyworker membership, you get the step-by-step course creation training that's helped members build their first passive income streams. You get monthly coaching calls where you can get unstuck in real time. You get a hypnotherapy library designed to rewire the limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck. Because let's be real, information isn't the problem. Self-sabotage is. And you get a community of body workers who get it, who are building this alongside you, cheering you on and holding you accountable when life gets hard, and collaborating and supporting you when you launch something too. If you're ready to stop watching your kids grow up from the treatment room, if you're ready to build something that gives you time freedom and financial freedom, if you're ready to finally step into the version of your business that actually supports your life, head to the link in the show notes and use the code SBCPOD to get a special discount just for podcast listeners. Because you don't need another certification or modality. You don't need to wait until you're quote unquote ready, whatever that means. You just need someone in your corner who's walked this path. and a proven system that actually works for massage therapists juggling all of this. I'll see you inside. Another huge mistake I see is people hiring too fast. And they get really eager to do it because they're overwhelmed. Their schedule is filling up. There's, an open room maybe, and they're craving some relief or extra revenue, so they rush. They ignore red flags. They hire based on convenience. They hire because someone seems nice, or they hire because the person technically has the right license or skill set, or because they just need someone in the room generating income. And I understand the temptation. I've been there. But I will say this as clearly as I can. Hiring the wrong person is more expensive than waiting for the right one. It costs you more money, more time, much more emotional energy, and usually creates a whole lot more mess to clean up later. If you're building a business that you want to last, you cannot build it from panic and urgency. You have to build it from clarity. And that means getting clear on your mission, your culture, your standards of practice, the role you're actually hiring for, what support you are willing and able to provide, and whether you truly have the client demand, systems, and capacity to lead. And this is where I also want to mention something that is a much bigger conversation, but it's important. A lot of people hire 1099 contractors because they think it will save them money, but then they treat those people like employees, and that's a huge problem. If you want someone working specific hours, following your pricing, wearing your shirt or any type of dress code, using your systems, following your protocols, showing up in a particular way inside your brand, and functioning as a part of your business, then in many cases, what you actually want is an employee, not a contractor. And when people don't understand that difference, it ends up hurting the practitioner and putting the business at risk too. So, part of being a better employer is actually taking the time to understand the kind of role you're creating, not just what feels cheapest or easiest, but what's actually correct, what's actually ethical, and what's actually supportive. And this is why I believe leadership is a real job. It's not just a side effect of having a full schedule and an extra room available. Leadership is a role. And until your business is big enough to hire a manager, you are the manager. You are the one who needs to listen. You are the one who needs to create standards, communicate clearly, guide the culture, and support your people. And one thing that's really been circling my mind lately, especially having been an employee myself these past couple of years, is the L in leader stands for listen. I got this from John Maxwell, who is an incredible leadership coach. A good leader listens. They do not just dictate, they do not just assume, they don't just make decisions from the top down without paying attention to people who are actually part of the machine. A good leader hires the right people and then listens to those people. They create space for feedback, they pay attention. They're not just looking for compliance, they are looking for alignment. And I think when it comes to better employers, they tend to do a lot of things differently. First and foremost, they hire slower and get clearer before they bring someone on. They onboard intentionally. They don't just hand someone a room key and wish them luck. They create systems, not to make the massages cookie cutter, but to make the business consistent and clear. And I know some people in our profession bristle at the idea of standardization, but let me say this. Standardization does not mean every therapist gives the exact same massage. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about consistency in how clients are greeted, how communication happens, how follow-up happens, how expectations are set, how a practitioner is supported, and how the business operates behind the scenes. Those things really matter. There's a reason the franchise model works. I know a lot of people hate hearing that, but it's simply true. It works because it's systemized. Now, do I think the franchise model is the gold standard for how therapists should be treated? Absolutely not. But I do think a lot of practitioner-owned businesses would benefit from looking at why that model works structurally and asking, how do I create something with that same level of clarity and consistency, but with much more integrity, support, and humanity? That is the opportunity. That's where change gets to happen. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I have consulted with so many business owners in this profession who have beautiful skill sets, huge hearts, meaningful visions, but they are struggling because they either hired the wrong people or they never built the systems and standards in the first place. Then when they finally try to create policies or structure later, it feels chaotic because the culture was never built intentionally from the start. So if you're listening to this and you feel that little spark of recognition, maybe because you've thought about hiring or maybe because you already have a small team and things feel messier than you want them to, I just want you to know that this does not mean that you are failing. It means that leadership is asking more of you now, and that's okay. This is a learnable skill. You can become the kind of employer good therapists want to stay with. You can build a workplace that does not recreate the same burnout culture you were trying to escape. You can create something where practitioners feel valued, nurtured, supported, and proud to be a part of what you are building. That is possible. And honestly, I hope more of you do. Because I want the therapist listening to this who would actually thrive as an employee to have better options. I want them to know that there is hope. I want them to know that it doesn't have to be franchise or solo, and that's the only option that they have. It doesn't have to be burnout or self-employment. There can be another way for them. And if you're the practitioner listening who does feel called to become an employer, I want to encourage you to answer that call with intention. Not because you just need another pair of hands, not because you're maxed out and panicking, not because you think scaling automatically means success, but because you genuinely want to create something that changes the game for people who work with you. And if that is you, then yes, please do it. Please become the thoughtful employer. Please become the person who creates a beautiful culture. Please become the one who takes onboarding seriously. Please become the one who hires carefully. Please become the one who listens. Please become the one who builds a workplace that helps this profession last longer and feel better to be a part of, because we need that. And if you're not sure whether that path is right for you yet, the Sustainable Success Blueprint is the next best place to start. It'll help you get honest about what kind of business actually fits you, where your strengths are, and how to move toward a more sustainable model without just copying what everyone else is telling you to do. And if you already know that you want to hire or improve the team you have, the First Time Employer's Guide is inside the Sustainable Body Worker membership, along with a whole lot of support around building a business that is actually sustainable for you and the people inside of it. Both of those links are in the show notes for you to find. Because at the end of the day, this really is the deeper conversation here. You cannot build sustainably if you are copying someone else's version of success. Not in solo practice, not in leadership, not in hiring, not in any of it. So if there's one thing I want you to take from this episode, it is this. The profession doesn't just need more solo practitioners. It needs better employers. It needs people who are willing to lead with purpose, people who understand that employment can be a beautiful path when it is done well, people who are willing to create workplaces where talented practitioners can actually thrive and want to stay for the long haul. And if that's on your mind, I hope you answer the call. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode resonated, I would love for you to share it with another massage therapist or business owner who needs to hear this conversation, because I really do believe that this is how culture shifts begin. And if you have any thoughts on this episode, come find me on Instagram at sustainable.bodyworker and let me know. It really is me over there responding to messages and posting and all of that good stuff. And I genuinely love hearing what lands for you or what triggers you. Let's have this conversation. Next week, we're going to keep this conversation going, and we're going to talk about whether you are actually ready to hire your first employee, because wanting a team and being ready for one are not always the same thing. So I'll see you in the next episode when that one drops. In the meantime, take care. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for listening to The Sustainable Body Worker. If something resonated for you today, grab your free breakthrough session, which includes a custom hypnotherapy track to help you unlock the next level. Grab it now with the link in the show notes. And to hear more, hit subscribe. We'll see you next time.